With Maul Shadow Lord on the horizon, it's time to look at the criminal empires that rose when the Jedi fell, the Republic collapsed, and the Sith took control. In today's video, we're going to be talking about some of the key players in Maul's crime world leading up to Maul Shadow Lord to help get you guys prepared. Let's go! The modern underworld story in Star Wars accelerates with one simple truth. The galaxy made the mistake of assuming Maul stayed dead. In The Phantom Menace, Maul is cut in half and thrown down a reactor shaft by the High Ground himself. That should be the end of him. But in the Clone Wars, we learn something important about the dark side. Hatred can keep you alive longer than your body should allow. When Maul finally crawls back into the galaxy, he doesn't come back as a servant, he comes back as a survivor. And more than anything else, Maul comes back with a new goal: revenge. And revenge itself isn't enough. Maul doesn't just want to kill Obi-Wan, he doesn't want to just hurt Sidious, he wants to matter again. He wants power that can't be taken away by a single master or a single betrayal. That's where Maul's thinking changes. He realized being a Sith apprentice is a dead end. Sidious always discards tools. So instead of climbing the Sith ladder, Maul builds a different kind of empire. He looks at the galaxy the way the Hutts do. Control the trade, control the violence, control the fear. And you don't need a throne, you don't need a senate, you become necessary on your own. This is where Maul makes the smartest move of his entire life. He stops building armies and starts building infrastructure. And that's how the Shadow Collective is born. In the Clone Wars Season 5, Maul doesn't just show up swinging a lightsaber on Mandalore. Well, other than to take the mantle of leader of Mandalore, he shows up negotiating. He approaches the Death Watch, offering them a path to power on Mandalore to restore them to their former glory. He pulls in the Black Sun, the galaxy's premier network of assassins and fixers. He drags the Pyke Syndicate into his orbit, knowing whoever controls spice controls money, and whoever controls money controls wars. He even pressures the Hutt cartel, not because he wants their loyalty, but because he wants access to their territory and their trade routes. Crimson Dawn began as a ruthless band of mercenaries, bounty hunters, and privateers who moved from planet to planet, stealing valuable resources and crushing resistance through terror. Their brutality became legendary after the people of the desert world Seravine finally fought back, only for the mercenaries to punish them by cutting out the tongues of every man, woman, and child they could find, in an act that announced Crimson Dawn's rise to galactic notoriety. By the final years of the Galactic Republic, the group had transformed into one of the most powerful crime syndicates in the galaxy, rivaling organizations like the Black Sun, the Pyke Syndicate, and the Hutts. During the Clone Wars, the Crimson Dawn joined the Shadow Collective as well, and Maul used the near-human crime boss Dryden Voss as their public face of the organization, while Maul controlled them from the shadows. And under Maul's manipulation, Crimson Dawn helped seize Mandalore. On the surface, the plan is simple. Unite the underworld, take Mandalore, force Sidious to acknowledge him as a rival power instead of a discarded apprentice. But underneath that, Maul is doing something much bigger. He's building a shadow government. The Shadow Collective isn't Maul's gang, it's a system. The Pykes move spice and credits, Black Sun move information and death. The Hutts move territory and distribution. Death Watch provides soldiers and fear to some extent, and Maul sits in the middle, not as a king, but as a broker between it all. If you want business, you go through him. If you want protection, you go through him. If you want a war started or ended quickly, you go through him. And that makes Maul something dangerous. It makes him independent. He doesn't need help from the Republic or Empire. The Pykes are especially important here because spice is the one commodity that never stops flowing. Governments rise and fall, wars begin and end, but spice always moves. Well after the Empire, in the Book of Boba Fett, you see exactly how the Pykes are still operating and around. In the Clone Wars, Maul deals directly with Pyke leadership, including Marge Krim, a Syndicate boss powerful enough to negotiate with Jedi and warlords alike. Marge Krim represents what the Pykes really are. They're not brutes, they're professionals at what they do. They don't care who rules the galaxy, they care who controls the routes and who pays the credits. And whoever controls the routes decides who can afford to fight. Black Sun fills a different role. They're not logistics, they're not territory, they're influence. In Legends, Black Sun is tied to Prince Shizor, the idea of underworld royalty, a crime lord whose reach was so vast he could stand in the same room as Darth Vader and not flinch. In canon, Black Sun operates more like a corporation with layers of Vigos and lieutenants running operations across systems. One of those Vigos, Zeton Moj, can be found in the Clone Wars in a holo meeting alongside Dryden Voss at the end in Season 7, which ties the Black Sun directly into the same criminal power network and the early formation of Crimson Dawn. The Hutts, of course, are the old kings of the underworld. Jabba isn't powerful because he can fight. He's powerful because he owns pieces of the galaxy's trade grid. His influence isn't about expansion, it's about permanence, tribute, territory, and tradition. And Maul understands that. He doesn't try to replace the Hutts, he tries to make himself unavoidable with them. But the Shadow Collective hits the same wall every criminal empire eventually hits in Star Wars. The Sith. Sidious does not tolerate independent power. Maul isn't supposed to build something that exists outside the Sith Order. So when Maul takes Mandalore and crowns himself ruler, Sidious personally steps in. The result is the Siege of Mandalore. Maul loses the throne, the Shadow Collective fractures, and Death Watch splinters. The underworld scatters, and as Order 66 approached, Maul ordered Voss and the other leaders of the rest of the Shadow Collective into hiding to ensure that the main powers of the Syndicate survive during the Empire's rise. Then the Clone Wars end with Order 66, and the Republic becomes the Empire, and the Jedi are hunted to near extinction. And the galaxy enters one of the most unstable periods in its history. The old rules are gone, but the new ones aren't fully written yet. And if Maul Shadow Lord really is set about a year after the war, this is the exact moment it's stepping into. Maul is alive, the Sith think they've buried him as a threat, the Empire is busy consolidating power, the Outer Rim is barely policed, and the crime syndicates are scrambling to fill the vacuum. For the first time in a long time, Maul has something he rarely gets: time. Time to rebuild, time to recruit, time to turn the Shadow Collective from a temporary coalition into something more permanent, something quieter, something harder to destroy. So when you watch Maul Shadow Lord, pay close attention to who Maul chooses to work with and who he chooses to control. Because Maul doesn't need to rule every syndicate, he just needs to control the arteries they all depend on. Just enough manipulation that he learned from the Sith and Sidious to control everyone. What the reveal of Maul at the end of Solo does is it reveals that the Crimson Dawn isn't independent and it's still all connected through Maul. But he does it in the shadows. Maul doesn't rule openly anymore, he rules through systems, through lieutenants, through fear and dependency. And this is where Maul Shadow Lord becomes so interesting. The show is likely to set right into this transition period. I mean, it's literally Maul Shadow Lord, or he's going into the shadows. If the series leans into the underworld the way it looks like it will, we could see the early architecture of Crimson Dawn forming. And this is something I'm looking forward to see, other than the potential addition of Darth Talon, or at least a callback to Darth Talon. We might not see Dryden Voss, but we should see some of the early members of the organization, or at least who eventually become the organization. But yeah, I'm super excited for Maul Shadow Lord and excited to see how Maul uses his influence and Sith manipulation to kind of take over the galaxy and set up his kind of new version of the Crimson Dawn and kind of the rest of the crime syndicates so that they can be a thorn in Palpatine's side for the years to come during the Empire leading up to the events of Solo, a Star Wars movie, and more. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments and let me know if I missed anything.